Hey guys, tonight we drift into a story so oddly specific, so sun-drenched in mythic inconvenience that it could only happen to a Greek god on a day he really needed coffee. You're heading into the world of golden chariots, celestial office hours, and the quiet disaster of losing a flaming star on your watch. Welcome to the day Apollo misplaced the sun. You wake up late, like very late. There's a strange absence of warmth on your skin. No golden glow through the temple curtains. No birds chirping obnoxiously outside your windows, and most alarmingly, no telltale hum of the sun chariot wheels rattling over morning clouds. Just the faint scent of burnt olive oil and, is that goat? You sit up, rub your eyes, and immediately realize something's wrong. The world is still dark. Now you're Apollo, god of the sun music, poetry, healing prophecy, archery, spontaneous abs, and basically anything that requires looking dramatic in golden light. So it's more than a little awkward to realize that your central responsibility, the one with the actual fiery orb attached to it, is just not functioning. No sun, no dramatic entrance, no applause from the farmers. You swing your legs off the bed and step onto cool marble. Your chambers in Delphi are uncharacteristically gloomy. The usual nymph who plays your wake-up lyre is nowhere to be seen, probably cowering behind a potted laurel. A pigeon flutters nervously past your window. It's unclear if it's fleeing you or the cosmic mistake you've just committed. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your location and the local time in the comments. I love seeing who's tuning in from where and when. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wrap yourself in your finest golden robe, because if you're going to investigate an interstellar disaster, you may as well look fabulous doing it. Stepping outside, you expect to be blinded by light. Instead, you're greeted by murky purples and sluggish grays. The world is trapped in a kind of eternal twilight. The birds are confused. The farmers are confused. A rooster is crying softly into a turnip. And still no sun. Maybe it's a Tuesday, you mutter, trying to remember if you gave Helios a turn on the reins. But no, Helios retired decades ago to a vineyard where he paints watercolors of clouds and mutters about climate change. This was your shift. You jog gracefully, divinely down the steps toward the stables. The stables are an architectural marvel. Carved from cloudstone, gilded with fireproof gold, and staffed by semi-immortal horse whisperers. You arrive expecting order. Instead, it smells like panic and singed hay. The horses, the divine sun chariot team, are sweating and pacing, and very much not in harness. Pyro eyes. Asai. The lead stallion tosses his mane dramatically, side-eyes. You then returns to gnawing at what appears to be a scroll. The stable boy, a satyr named Linon, blinks up at you with wide, terrified goat eyes. He said you told him they could sleep in today. You frown. Who said Dionysus? Ah, you rub your temples. Dionysus, god of wine madness. Poorly thought-out toga parties and last-minute schedule swaps, of course. You walk over to the chariot. It's still there. Glinting gold, glorious and entirely empty of solar orb. You touch the yoke. It's cold. Like a kitchen ladle left in a cave overnight. No fire, no pressure, no trapped daylight humming inside. Historians still argue whether the solar chariot was a literal object or simply a divine metaphor for celestial consistency. Either way, one thing's clear: the metaphor is missing. You step back. There's a faint hoofprint in the stardust path outside the stables leading away. Another, then another, and a wine bottles. You sigh. The horses may not have moved, but someone took the sun. And odds are, they were drunk. You follow the hoofprints which, despite all expectations, lead away from the sky ramp and toward the orchard. It's a well-known truth among the immortals that nothing good ever happens in the orchard before noon. There's too much dew, too many smug bees, and a suspicious number of musical instruments left behind from the night before. And sure enough, there's Dionysus, slumped against an olive tree with his tunic half-buttoned, and a wreath of half-eaten figs on his head, looking like someone who tried to host a picnic, a poetry reading, and a goat rodeo at the same time and succeeded in none of them. You clear your throat. He opens one eye, squints at you, then grins. Morning sunshine. You do not laugh. Where is it? He waves vaguely to the west, or maybe east. His wrist makes a little figure-8 motion which you choose to interpret as completely unhelpful. Don't be mad, he slurs, reaching for a bunch of grapes that's been squished beyond recognition. I just borrowed it, briefly. For ambiance. You blink. You borrowed the sun for ambiance. Dionysus shrugs. I was throwing a thing. One of those nighttime daylight bacchanalia. Very avant-garde. Light wine, interpretive shouting. You would have loved it. You would not have loved it. He continues, clearly proud of himself. So I summoned the chariot, which, by the way, is very responsive to music if you just sing an E-flat minor. I hitched up. The boys popped the sun in the cradle and sort of left it in neutral. You stare at him. You left the sun in a field, or a temple, or was it a fountain? You resist the urge to smite him on the spot. Not because you don't want to, but because the paperwork is unbearable. Historians still argue whether Dionysus's chaotic tendencies were a form of divine strategy or just the ancient Greek version of chronic poor planning. Whatever the case, his involvement in celestial matters usually ended with someone waking up in a tree wearing a toga made of soup. Do you remember anything else, you ask? He nods, then points to a trail of glitter. Yes, actual glitter leading away from the orchard. That wasn't there before, he mutters, then promptly passes out face first into a melon. So now you're chasing glitter through an orchard before breakfast. Each step squishes slightly. The trees are humming, literally. One of them coughs and offers you a fig. You politely decline. Eventually, the glitter leads to a strange clearing, one you don't remember existing yesterday. A circle of mushrooms glows faintly along the border. Inside a musical triangle, a trident jammed into the ground, and an entire roast eel on a velvet cushion. Hermes, you try. A swirl of wind, and there he is, messenger, god, patron of travelers, pickpockets, and suspicious shortcuts. Lost something? He grins, already chewing something crunchy that might be celery, might be sacred scroll. He gestures grandly. Welcome to the Department of Found but Confusing Objects. You blink. Is the sun here? Define here, he replies, gesturing to a burlap sack that radiates a suspicious amount of warmth. You approach cautiously. The sack is twitching slightly, and there's a faint hum, not the comforting hum of solar power, but more of a nervous buzzing like someone locked a firefly in a mason jar and fed it espresso. Why is it humming? Hermes shrugs. I tried to put it in timeout. It didn't like that. You open the sack. Inside, not the full sun, but a slice of it. A solar wedge like a celestial lemon. You glance up at Hermes. He shrugs. I think Dionysus broke it. Or maybe it got embarrassed and fragmented itself. That is not how the sun works. Or at least not how it's supposed to work. But you're Apollo. You've dealt with poetry contests, plague management, and once a guy who tried to trademark the lyre. You can fix this. Probably. You reach into the sack. It's warm, too warm. You pull your hand back, shake it out, then glance at Hermes. Any more slices? He nods. At least 6. Maybe 7 if you count the one I saw Artemis juggle this morning. You do not like the sound of that. Where are they now? Hermes pulls out a scroll with doodles all over it. I mark their locations in vague metaphor. You sigh. Great. It's going to be one of those days. You tuck the humming sun slice under your arm gingerly, like a very judgmental baguette, and take Hermes' metaphorical map in hand. It is predictably a disaster. The routes are labeled with phrases like, where the moon sulked last and probably left near goats. There's a tiny doodle of Medusa in the corner giving a thumbs up. You don't even ask. Still, you're determined. You've retrieved lost oracles, cooled volcanic tantrums, and once negotiated peace between 2 rival poetry schools, armed with nothing but a harp and a cheese platter. This is just another divine hiccup with fire and fragments and vaguely radioactive burlap. First, stop the Temple of Delphi. Yes, your own temple. Because, of course, the place where people come for clarity is the place where you now go to find confusion. The acolytes are mid-ritual when you arrive. A lot of incense, a bit of chanting, one guy balancing a goose on his head. Standard. They stop abruptly as you enter, partly because you're glowing a bit from the sun slice, partly because your hair is full of leaves. You're about to ask for guidance when the oracle herself steps forward. Welcome, Radiant One, she says. Your aura is spicy. Thanks, you deadpan. Had a morning. You explain the sun situation. She nods wisely. Yes, the light is fractured. The world is in liminal twilight. Crops are confused. Tell me something I don't know. She pauses dramatically. The squirrels have begun worshipping their own shadows. You blink. Great. She gestures to the altar. A piece came here, glowed for a bit, then left with a pigeon. A pigeon. Yes, a large one. Possibly enchanted. Might have been your sister. That tracks. Artemis, goddess of the hunt. And the moon has many forms. Tall, silver-bowed maiden. Shadowed forest whisper. Giant glowing pigeon. You don't question it. Historians still argue whether Artemis's shape-shifting tendencies were symbolic of feminine adaptability or simply the result of extreme sibling rivalry and moon-induced boredom. You follow the oracle's vague handwave toward the forest beyond the temple. And yep, there it is. The second slice. Floating 6 feet in the air, rotating lazily above a mossy clearing. Below it, Artemis, leaning on her bow arms crossed, looking like she's about to win something and ruin everything at the same time. Took you long enough, she says casually, feeding the solar wedge a bit of moonlight. You open your mouth. She raises a hand. I know. I wasn't supposed to take it. I didn't. It came to me. You're glowing. She shrugs. I look good glowing. She does. It's annoying. Can I have it back, you ask? She circles the sun slice. Maybe. If you can hit it. You squint. Are you challenging me to archery? I'm challenging you to focus. She replies. You've been dragging that thing around for centuries. Maybe it's tired. Maybe it wants a change. You take a breath. Step into the clearing. Draw an imaginary bow with your fingers, just enough to suggest effort without breaking a sweat. The sun slice wobbles, then zips into your other hand like a golden frisbee returning to its rightful shelf. Artemis whistles, show off. You tuck the second slice into the pouch, which now hums like a suspiciously confident beehive. 2 down, 5 or 6, depending on Hermes's math still to go. Where's the next one, you ask? She grins. West, near the philosophers. You groan. Philosophers. Nothing slows a quest like a Socratic debate about whether light even exists. Still, you thank her. She tosses you a glowing feather, in case it gets dark. You raise an eyebrow. It's from the pigeon form, she adds. You do not ask follow-up questions. You descend the mountain, each step echoing slightly as the world watches half-lit, half-lost, and now mildly amused. The next solar slice awaits in Athens. And if you're lucky, you'll get there before the philosophers convince it that it's just an illusion. You arrive in Athens mid-afternoon, or at least what passes for afternoon when the sun is doing a part-time internship in pieces. The city is bathed in a weird half-glow like someone lit a candle inside a wine bottle and then walked away. Philosophers loiter on marble steps, gesturing wildly with their scrolls, sandals flapping in indignation. You spot the solar wedge immediately. It's floating above the agora, spinning gently above a public fountain, attracting a small but passionate crowd of intellectuals who are furiously debating its nature. That is clearly a manifestation of the divine, one cries, dramatically pointing with a breadstick. No, no. Another retorts, waving his hands. It's just a metaphor for the human condition. Metaphor. It's an optical illusion caused by reflective owl feathers. That owl feather argument again. You approach the scene, trying not to let the solar pouch under your arm hum too smugly. As you get closer, the sun slice flares slightly, clearly recognizing you. The philosophers all gasp. One faints gently onto a bench. A small child tugs at your robe. Mr. Apollo, is the sky broken? You smile faintly, just briefly misfiled. You raise a hand, palm open. The sun slice gives a reluctant little flicker, then zips toward you like a wayward kite. The crowd gasps again. One man drops his stylus in awe. You catch it, tuck it into your bag with the others, and brace for questions. So what is it? Someone asks. You glance back. A teaching moment. The crowd explodes into discussion. Within seconds, they're arguing about whether your answer was literal or symbolic. You slip away while they're distracted by a very heated exchange involving lamp oil dreams and invisible turtles. Outside the Agra, Hermes is waiting. He's upside down, lounging on a column like a bored possum. Nice catch, he calls, then bites into an apple he definitely didn't pay for. Next location, you ask. He tosses a stone into the air, watches it spin, then nods toward the coast. The next slice wandered out to sea. Something about wanting to reflect better. Great, you mutter, because nothing says efficient sun collection like maritime hide-and-seek. He pulls out a tiny scroll. You'll need a boat. Of course I will. And a favor from Poseidon. You groan? Don't worry, Hermes says cheerfully. He's in a good mood. He just won a trident toss. You squint. Is that a sport? Wasn't until he invented it. So naturally, you make your way to the harbor where fishermen are squinting at the water like it's forgotten how to behave. The sea is glowing in patches, shimmering in strange rhythms as if the sun slice is playing a game of hide-and-seek with the waves. Poseidon rises from the shallows like a wet, barnacle-bedazzled skyscraper. Apollo, he booms beard full of seaweed, smile full of mischief, looking for something shiny. I'd say yes, but I suspect this is going to involve a favor. He laughs. The water ripples with amusement. I fished your light fragment out of a whirlpool. It's been dancing around like a bioluminescent eel. Delightful. Can I have it? Of course, if. There's always an if, you sigh. If Poseidon continues, you recite me a poem. You blink. A poem. Yes, about waves, or kelp, or heroic clams. You know the classics. You resist the urge to ask if he's been into Dionysus's fig wine again. Instead, you clear your throat. You compose something on the spot, something vaguely lyrical, just whimsical enough. Ode to a trident. Gleaming and wet, best utensil for seafood I've ever met. You stir the storm, command the foam, but lose all grace when used on loam. Poseidon laughs so hard the tides skip a beat. Excellent, he roars. You may have the slice. He holds out a hand. The solar wedge floats from beneath the waves, trailing sparkles and disgruntled shrimp. It lands in your palm, hot and humming like a smug kettle. That makes 4. The pouch buzzes like a nest of caffeinated bees. Next one's inland, Poseidon says, settling back into his salty jacuzzi near the caves of the Echo. You nod, already stepping onto the nearest dry patch of land. The sun might be disassembled, but momentum is key. As you walk, you glance at the sea behind you, where dolphins leap through trails of sunlit foam, and Poseidon hums to himself, already inventing another ocean-based sport. You keep going, toward the caves, the cliffs, and whatever radiant trouble waits around the bend. The path inland curls like an old scroll, one written by a scribe who is a little too fond of dramatic flair and switchbacks. You pass olive trees twisted with age, their roots like sleepy snakes, and hear the distant hum of cicadas harmonizing with whatever is rattling inside your solar pouch. Every so often, you glance down to check that none of the 4 slices have started leaking metaphysical energy or worse, humming show tunes. So far, so good. The Cave of Echo is just ahead. She's not on the official roster of sun deities, but Echo has a habit of knowing things before you do. She's also got a gift for repeating the parts of your thoughts you would rather keep quiet. You step into the cave. It's cool and dark, with walls that shimmer faintly, not from light but from memory. Words spoken here have a tendency to hang around like perfume or bad decisions. Looking for something bright, the cave asks. Your own voice. Perfect. Yes, you answer. Yes. The cave repeats, sarcastic as always. The 5th sun slice is hanging lazily near the back, casting flickering light over a puddle that may or may not whisper stock tips when the moon is full. You approach slowly. Light plays across the cave walls, forming brief images. A lyre, a chariot, a set of divine dentures you very much regret lending to Zeus. You reach out, the slice trembles, and Echo chimes in, "Lost again, aren't you?" You sigh, "No, maybe, slightly." The sun slice pulses, reacting to your hesitation. This one's testy. Historians still argue the cave echoes whether Apollo ever admitted he needed help. You roll your eyes. Once. In 412 BCE, it rained figs. The sun slice giggles, yes, giggles, and darts to the ceiling. Of course it does. Echo chuckles softly, and you're reminded that she always enjoyed a bit of chase. To coax it down, you hum. Not a formal hymn, just something low and familiar, like the sound of wind curling through tall grass, or the tune you played once to cheer up a morning shepherd. The sun slice wavers, trembles, then drops into your waiting palm like an obedient but smug soap bubble. "That's 5, you whisper. "That's 5, Echo agrees for once, not sarcastic. You nod, slide the slice into the pouch, and the cave dims again. Echo leaves you with a gift, one of her better habits. A gentle map drawn in sound, pointing you through the hills to a ruined temple where slice number 6 has reportedly taken up residence. Something about its new love of architecture. Or frescoes. Or maybe it's dating a gargoyle now. These fragments get weird when unsupervised. The ruined temple appears after several hours of surprisingly uneventful hiking, which in Greek myth terms means you only had to step over 2 sleeping hydras and politely ignore a singing tree that offered unsolicited relationship advice. You spot the temple immediately. All half-collapsed columns and dignified moss, the kind of place that insists it used to be important even as lizards sunbathe on its crumbling altar. And there it is, the 6th sun slice, snugly embedded in a stone relief of yourself. You pause. It's not the most flattering image. The artist gave you overly heroic eyebrows and forgot your left foot entirely. Still, you're a little touched. You reach for the fragment. It won't budge. Of course. You try flattery. Nice fresco work. Very realistic sunbeam-to-face ratio. No movement. You try honesty. Listen, I know I haven't updated your position in centuries, but the solar route's been fine-tuned. You're needed. The stone warms. Encouraging. You press your hand to the engraving right over the comically large lyre that the sculptor gave you for dramatic flair. There's a flicker of recognition. A hum. And the sun slice loosens with a soft pop like a divine cork from a bottle of radiant vintage. Into the pouch it goes. 6. The fabric nearly vibrates with contained heat. You're beginning to sweat, but it's the satisfying kind. The kind that says you're nearing the end of something ridiculous but noble. There's only one left. You glance around. The air smells like olive oil and drama. That means you're near Mount Olympus. Of course, the last slice would end up there. Of course it would. But not just on Olympus. No, it's on the table at the next divine dinner. Zeus is using it as a paperweight. You feel the sun pouch tremble in anticipation or dread, and set off toward the mountain where gods argue over ambrosia gossip like old nymphs and accidentally misplace celestial objects during mealtime. One slice to go. And then maybe you'll finally get your chariot reins back. Mount Olympus looms ahead. Not in the way normal mountains do, but more like a collective shrug of clouds and sky that someone decided to stack into a divine residence. You climb slowly, your feet crunching along goat paths, and over sun-drenched pebbles that almost seem to hum underfoot, perhaps, in recognition of the solar slices jingling softly in your pouch like sacred coins. You're halfway up when the air changes. Suddenly, everything smells like myrrh, roasted figs, and overconfidence. Welcome to the divine altitude. The path becomes a marble staircase. Of course it does. The gods aren't about to risk their sandals on actual dirt. You sigh, adjust your pouch, and make your way up, passing golden statues of Zeus that suspiciously resemble his Tinder profile pictures. You pause at a particularly heroic one where he's wrestling a very startled-looking eagle. It's signed Zeus, age 22. No edits. At the top, you reach the feasting hall, and it's chaos. Hera is dramatically refusing to sit next to Ares. Dionysus is pouring wine into a helmet. Artemis is very loudly explaining the concept of personal space to Hermes, who is definitely trying to juggle grapes. Apollo. You stand at the entrance unnoticed for now, which gives you a moment to spot the seventh and final sun slice. And there it is, casually resting under a stack of papyrus scrolls on Zeus's end of the long marble table. It's glowing like a patient candle trying very hard not to be awkward about being used as stationery. You inhale slowly and step into the room. Hermes notices you first. He drops 2 grapes in a small plate. "Hey, sunshine," he grins, literally. The others turn. "Oh, look," says Athena. Without glancing up, he remembered how to show up. Zeus lifts his goblet. "Apollo, join us, or yell at us, whichever mood you're in." You point at the slice. "My sun fragment." He squints. "This?" He picks it up and holds it between 2 fingers. It makes an excellent paperweight. Keeps Herodotus from rolling everywhere. You blink. You're using part of the literal sun as a paperweight. "To be fair," chimes Dionysus, "it's a very nice paperweight." "I need it, you say?" Zeus raises an eyebrow. "Do you want it, or do you want to earn it?" Hera groans. "Not everything needs a contest, dear." Zeus ignores her. "A challenge," he says, grandly standing now. "A test of skill, intellect, and divine flair." "Please, no poetry writings," mumbles Ares. Zeus strokes his beard like it owes him money. "A game of trivia." You squint. "Trivia? Yes, about you," he says with a smirk. "If we know you well enough, you can take your glowy shard. If not, you must admit you've grown forgettable." You look around the table. Athena already has a pen. Artemis is glaring at you like you've borrowed her favorite bow. Dionysus is drawing a mustache on a melon. This could go either way. Fine, you sigh. Let's do it. The first question. What's your favorite musical scale? You open your mouth, then stop. Athena answers. Dorian, because he thinks it makes him sound mysterious. Correct. Second question. What animal did you accidentally curse with eternal hiccups? Dionysus jumps in. A donkey. Because it mocked his harp tuning. Correct again. Third. Which constellation did he invent after tripping over a tortoise? Hermes shouts, Shelius Clumsimus. Technically not real, but funny enough that Zeus gives it a point. You stand frozen as they rattle off memories, some real, some wildly embellished. Hera somehow knows your favorite shade of laurel. Ares remembers a time you challenged him to a foot race and then rode your own sunbeam. Artemis tells the story of you turning your reflection into a limerick during a rainstorm. Even Hestia, who rarely speaks up quietly, offers he once sang to a hearth fire. Not for glory, just because. There's a pause. Zeus nods. Well, he says, tapping the glowing slice. Seems you're not forgotten after all. He passes it over. You take the seventh piece. It slips into the pouch with a soft hum like puzzle pieces clicking into place. It's whole again, and suddenly light. The pouch trembles, glows, and emits a gentle warmth that seeps into your fingertips. The sun is calling you home. The gods raise their goblets. To Apollo, says Hera, raising hers slightly, but with a smile. Our mildly disorganized but weirdly lovable brother. You raise yours too. To a fully functional sky. Zeus grins. We'll toast you again once the sunrise doesn't make people scream. And with that, you step away from the divine dinner table, sun pouch under your arm shoes, light on marble, the sky waiting for its conductor to return. The sky opens like a sleepy eye as you descend from Olympus, the weight of the sun restored in your satchel, and the scent of divine leftovers still lingering in your hair. There's no time for modesty, not when your celestial chariot is parked halfway across the horizon sulking. You've only left it unattended for, 3 days? Maybe 4. The last time you ghosted your own vehicle, it pouted for a full week and refused to rise above Thessaly. Farmers were not amused, so you hurry. Or at least you stroll with celestial purpose, which to mortals would look suspiciously like a guy in sandals walking quickly while muttering to himself. The climb down is smooth until you pass a grove of whispering trees, each murmuring something about glory days and remember when Apollo could actually keep track of his own sun. You don't respond. Trees hold grudges longer than gods do. By late afternoon, measured loosely in goat shadows, you reach the sun stable. Yes, it's a real place. Yes, it smells faintly of hot bronze and lavender. And yes, your chariot is still there. Hovering, glinting, twitching slightly like it knows it's been wronged. You approach with caution. "Hey buddy," you say softly. The reins ripple in the air. One of the wheels scoffs. "I missed you too." The chariot glows faintly at the sight of the full sun pouch. You lifted open the flap, and one by one the 7 slices rise like golden puzzle pieces with stage fright. They spiral upward, fusing together in a whirling disk of heat light and memory. You squint. You're looking spherical. With a low, satisfied hum, the sun reassembles itself and clicks into place at the front of your chariot like a divine hood ornament. And then there it is, the old rhythm. You feel it before you hear it, the pulse of the sky calling for order. The clouds aligning like page margins, the wind straightening its part. Your hands grip the reins. The horses, fire-colored, moodier than your average deity, snort to life. You always forget their names, so you rotate through affectionate nicknames. Toasty, Sizzle, Breadcrumb, and that one who kicks. You launch into the sky. It's not like riding a horse or flying a plane. It's like surfing molten light while being insulted by time itself. The chariot soars over the Aegean, first casting warmth onto waves that curl lazily toward the shore. Fishermen look up, nod, and casually pretend you're not 200 feet above them wearing eyeliner and a tunic that's technically fireproof. You guide the sun across the heavens, feeling each region shift from shadow to shimmer. This is what you were made for, and yet something feels off. The light's a bit uneven. You glance behind. Breadcrumb is chewing on part of the sun. Seriously? He shrugs, firemane crackling guiltily. You sigh and pull the sun forward just slightly, untangling it from horse teeth and redirecting it toward the west. As you pass over Delphi, you hear faint hymns, someone's playing your lyre compositions. Badly, but with enthusiasm. You smile. Even forgotten gods have fans. You think back to earlier Echo's Cave, the fresco, the trivia game, and now here you are dragging the sun back into rhythm like a lost sock, returning to the laundry cycle. Historians still argue whether the daily rise and fall of the sun was ever truly orchestrated or just the result of divine clumsiness and persistent corrections. You'd argue both. But then again, you're biased. A sudden gust catches the reins, yanking you slightly off course. Below, Sparta gets 5 extra minutes of sun, while Corinth gets briefly plunged into the lighting conditions of a moody music video. Sorry, Corinth. As evening sets in, you guide the chariot downward, easing the sun into its sleeping nest behind the horizon. The horses calm. The light cools. Stars blink into place like shy fireflies. You land softly in the western stables where Selene the moon goddess waits, with her silver chariot already polished. "Rough ride," she asks, tossing you a fig. You bite into it. Nothing a little divine sarcasm couldn't handle. Forgot the sun again. You pause. Temporarily misfiled it. She snorts. "See you tomorrow." Bright and early. She rolls her eyes. Try not to give Thessaly a second eclipse. And with that, she mounts her moon chariot, and the sky gently switches shifts. You lean back on the grass sun securely. Back in place, the horse is dozing beside you. It's quiet. The good kind of quiet, the kind that hums in your bones after a job almost well done. You close your eyes. One more day survived. One more sun found. And only 3 minor lighting complaints filed with Olympus HR. Not bad, Apollo. Not bad at all. You wake up on a hillside in western Arcadia where the grass is already plotting to poke you in the ribs, and the dew has zero respect for celestial titles. The sun is still asleep, softly glowing under the Earth's edge like a nightlight with social anxiety, and you're mildly surprised to discover that your pillow is one of your horse's hooves. Toasty, to be specific. He seems pleased. You stretch, creaking like an old lyre. Time to start the day again. But before you can even saddle up your chariot, a scroll flutters from the sky and bonks you in the forehead. It smells like Hermes cinnamon gum and poor decisions. You unroll it and sigh. It's a list. A very long list. Apparently, while you were playing hide-and-seek with your son, the mortal world noticed. Farmers panicked. Poets panicked. Economists. You didn't even know Greece had economists, yet definitely panicked. So now you've been voluntold to do a PR tour. Remind the mortals who you are, the scroll says. Smile more. No radiant flare-ups. And for the love of Gaia, wear pants. Rude. Still duty calls. You start with Athens. Always dramatic, always over-caffeinated. You drift into the agora like a floating billboard of golden charisma. At first, no one looks up. People are too busy arguing about olives versus olive oil. So you do the sensible thing. You shine. Just a little. Just enough to make the cobblestones glow and the shadows line up like obedient soldiers. The baker blinks twice. A philosopher drops his wine cup in slow motion. Is that Apollo? Didn't he quit? I heard he opened a juice bar on Crete. You chuckle and call out, still here, still sunny. The crowd gathers. Slowly at first, then quickly, as recognition sparks like kindling. You give a small wave. Just thought I'd swing by and check in. You know, classic God stuff. One elderly woman squints up. Where were you last Thursday? My tomatoes got frostbite. You wince. That's on me. Full refund on sunbeams, I promise. Another pipes up. Do you still do prophecies? Aha, that's your in. You nod, and soon enough you're perched atop a marble bench with a circle of mortals leaning in like school children at a campfire. You tell them stories not just about the future, but the kind they never hear from the oracles. The time you mistook a cloud for a cyclops. The day you sneezed so hard you invented a new musical scale. The unfortunate incident with the roasted artichokes and a lyre string that still won't speak to you. They laugh. They listen. They ask for blessings and selfies which you pretend not to understand. And just like that, you're remembered again. But as you bask in mortal adoration, a tremor ripples through the cobblestones. Not an earthquake, something worse. You turn. You feel it before you see it. A shadow in the sky, not a cloud. A chariot. Black gold trimmed pulled by two very large ravens and one suspiciously glowing goat. You groan. Helios, your distant cousin. Former sun god. Current dramatic problem. He lands with the theatrical flair of someone who thinks subtle is a kind of cheese. Well, well, he announces, stepping down in gleaming armor. If it isn't the absentee landlord of daylight, you squint. Helios, thought I'd drop by. You know, make sure the sky is still running on schedule. Very funny. The mortals look between you both. Some start backing away, clutching olives nervously. I had everything under control, you say. Uh-huh. Sure you did. Lost your son, abandoned your post, sparked 3 mortal cults in your absence, but hey. He grins. Who's counting? You step closer. Are you trying to take it back? Helios shrugs nonchalant. Just saying Olympus might benefit from a more reliable lightbringer. Historians still argue whether Helios ever truly gave up his solar gig or just took a very extended lunch break. The records are vague, and the ravens aren't talking. The standoff thickens like old honey. But before you can throw a verbal jab or summon a conveniently timed lightning bolt, someone interrupts. A child, tiny, freckled, holding a melted candle and looking up with wide sunlit eyes. Are you really Apollo? She whispers. You kneel. Yeah, still figuring it out, but yeah. She hands you the candle. Then I made this for you. It's sun-colored. You blink, then laugh softly. That's perfect. Helios watches expression unreadable. Then, with a surprisingly graceful nod, he steps back onto his chariot. I'll be watching, he says. Don't drop it again. He takes off, leaving only a whiff of goat sweat and ego. You stand holding the waxy little tribute, and the mortals cheer. Not for perfection, but for presence. You may have misplaced the sun, but it turns out you didn't lose the light. Later that night, with the candle tucked safely in your sash and your ego freshly buffed by mortal applause, you find yourself wandering the dusky edge of Mount Parnassus. The moon glows like a soft paper lantern, and you half expect Celine to lean out and whisper, "You're still up," but she's busy managing tides and composing lullabies for wolves. You walk slowly, bare feet sinking into moss, and you begin to hum an old melody you haven't played in centuries. Your lyre, practically pouting from disuse, buzzes faintly at your side like a neglected phone on vibrate. You pull it forward and strum. Just once. The sound echoes sleepy and golden across the hills. And then, a rustle, a shimmer, and from between two olive trees steps a woman, dressed in mist and night, with eyes the color of forgotten embers. Mnemosyne, you say? The titaness of memory nods. Still remember me. Barely, you grin. But the lyre does. She smirks, her voice like parchment unfolding. You've been sloppy with your myths. I misplaced the sun once and neglected the sacred narratives for decades. You've been letting the mortals do all the storytelling. You raise an eyebrow. They're doing fine. Did you see the one about me turning into a dolphin? Exactly. Her voice sharpens gently. They've turned you into a plot twist instead of a presence. You sit on a nearby rock, the lyre still in hand. So what you want me to start hosting Story Hour? She shrugs. Maybe not for them, but maybe for the myths themselves. You tilt your head. I'm listening. Mnemosyne steps forward and lays a slender finger on your forehead. The air thickens. Your thoughts slow. Remember Arachne, she whispers, and suddenly you do. The loom, the insult, the transformation. The threads of that memory stretch across time, nodding gently in the corners of your mind. Then remember Cassandra. And again a rush. The curse, the clarity, the way she looked at you the moment she realized the gift you gave was laced with tragedy. Each name is a lantern flickering to life. Hyacinthus, Coronis, Daphne. Each one warm and heavy and humming with sadness, glory, absurdity. You were a part of their stories, Mnemosyne says. But you never stayed long. Now you need to carry them. You frown. Why? She smiles faintly. Because forgetting isn't always a mortal problem. Historians still argue whether gods can forget. Some say it's beneath divine dignity. Others argue that memory, like nectar, must be replenished or it spoils. You nod slowly. All right, I'll remember. She steps back into the trees. Good, start with the spiders. And vanishes. You sit alone in the dark for a while, the names of the forgotten coiling gently in your hands like silk threads. It's a strange thing being a god of light and realizing you've ignored your own shadows. But you know where to begin. Arachne, the mortal who wove too well, too proud, too skilled, too honest in her tapestry. You remember how Athena reacted, offended, outmatched, embarrassed, and how you sort of just watched. Because what could you say? Nice embroidery, sorry for your eternal punishment. But Mnemosyne's words stick. You need to tell that story. Not the censored version, not the Olympian-approved morality tale. The whole thing. The loom and the curse and the silk-soft grief of someone turned into something she never asked to be. So you find a grove. Sit beneath a tree. Pull your lyre close. And begin, softly at first. Just a few chords. The rhythm of spinning wheels, the hush of thread sliding through calloused fingers. And around you shadows gather myths forgotten dusty waiting. You sing for them. Arachne, Cassandra, Hyacinthus. And in return they whisper back their truths. You don't even notice when your fingers start glowing, or when the stars seem to lean in blinking slower, listening closer. You just keep playing. Because maybe, just maybe this is what gods are meant to do. Not just hurl lightning or drag the sun, but sit still long enough to remember and remind. You wake up with moss in your hair and a spider on your forehead. She seems to be weaving something an elegant little web between the strands, and honestly, you're too groggy to stop her. Besides, you might deserve it. After all, it's been a few millennia since you apologized to the original weaver. You sit up slowly, joints popping like acorns underfoot, and stretch beneath the cypress tree. The lyre is beside you, humming faintly with leftover memory. Somewhere in the distance, a rooster crows like it's trying out for a tragic opera. You dust yourself off and whisper, "Okay, Arachne, let's do this properly." You remember the girl clearly now. She didn't start as a rebel just as someone absurdly good at weaving. The kind of mortal whose hands moved faster than thought, faster even than pride. Her tapestries didn't just depict myths, they argued with them. She wove the gods' mistakes, their vanity, their punishments. She wove the time Zeus disguised himself as a swan, a bull, a shower of gold, because the guy had commitment issues and zero chill. She wove Hera's jealous rages, Poseidon's mood swings, your own less than flattering pursuits. She didn't lie. She just told the version no one wanted to hang on a temple wall. And Athena. Athena did what gods do when they don't have a comeback. She transformed Arachne into a spider, to spin forever. And you watched. Maybe clapped once, maybe made a mental note to stay on Athena's good side. But Mnemosyne was right, you can't keep skipping to the next stanza when the verse turns sour. So now you search this grove for her, not Athena. Not the whole pantheon with their egos and polished lightning bolts. You search for Arachne. She's not hard to find. They're strung between two low branches is a web so intricate, so absurdly perfect you almost forget to breathe. You lean close. It isn't just strands, it's story. Threads shaped into scenes. Arachne at her loom. Athena looming over her. The moment of transformation legs where arms were silence, where defiance had lived. But also a sunbeam curled in one corner of the web. It's you, a tiny golden harp cradled in thread. You blink, you remembered. The spider doesn't speak, thankfully, because that would ruin your sleep cycle forever, but she scuttles once, then pauses, as if waiting. So you sit and play. Your lyre fills the grove with soft notes, and in return, the web shimmers, changes. Now it shows Arachne weaving again, but this time as herself. Human, laughing, free. It's not history, but it's hope. Historians still argue whether Arachne ever found peace in her new form. Some believe she became the mother of all spiders, honored in quiet corners of every home. Others say she spins her stories still waiting for someone to finally listen. You'd like to think this counts. You play until the sun stretches its golden arms across the grove, and you realize you found a rhythm again. Not just the duties of a god, but the quiet stitches between myths. The parts where nothing explodes. The soft edits. The rewrites. You whisper to the web, "I'll make sure they remember." And just for a moment, the entire grove glows. A sigh of silk and shadow and light. Then you're on your feet again, brushing dirt from your tunic and setting off through the trees. You've got other stories to mend, other forgotten names to hum into song. But this one woven, sung, and cradled in golden thread is no longer just Arachne's punishment. It's her portrait. And you're just the frame. You follow the lazy trail of a breeze as it curls around the hills, nudging you toward Delphi, that chatty little navel of the world where the air always smells vaguely of burned laurel and cryptic doom. Your sandals crunch on pebbles as you descend into the ruins like someone looking for their misplaced wallet. And in a way, you are. Memory is slippery stuff. The oracle is long gone, of course. Retired. Possibly moved to Mykonos for the sunsets. But the cave where the Pythia once channeled Apollo's cryptic prophecies. Still there. Still echoing with whispers if you squint your ears just right. You step inside. Cool, dark still, except for the faintest hiss like steam from an ancient kettle that's just too dramatic to stop entirely. You speak into the shadow. Any room for one more delusion? Silence. Then a drop of water falls. Plink. Another. You sit, close your eyes, and listen. Because if anyone knows the value of a whisper, it's you. You think of Cassandra. Sharp-eyed, sharp-tongued. She didn't ask for the gift of prophecy, you just like the sound of her voice. Mortals often mistake affection for generosity. You kissed her whispered futures into her throat and left her with a mind full of disasters and a world that refused to believe a word she said. You meant well, sort of, but Cassandra became the patron saint of ignored warnings. Every time someone skips the manual, ignores the weather alert, or eats questionable oysters, she rolls her eyes from the beyond. Historians still argue whether her curse was more tragic than cruel. After all, what's worse, knowing the truth or being silenced when it matters? You play a soft chord, a slow minor key that winds itself through the air like incense. For Cassandra, for every time she shouted, "Don't open that horse," and got a pat on the head instead. The lyre glows, not like sunlight, more like an apology, a gentle heat in the palm of your hand that says, "I remember now." You leave a note in the cave just in case she ever swings by. It reads, "You weren't wrong, you were just early." Outside, the clouds shift. One looks a little like a wooden horse, or maybe a toaster. Hard to tell with these cumulus types. As you walk, you hum again, softer this time. A tune not meant for amphitheaters or epics. Something quieter, sadder. The kind of song that unknots things, loose threads, bad endings, guilt. And in the distance, you see a spider web catch the sun. Not Arachne's this time, just some ordinary little spider doing her morning emails. Still, you smile. Because everything is connected. Thread to thread. Myth to myth. God to mistake. You continue your walk, passing empty temples and overgrown paths. Somewhere a turtle watches you with profound suspicion. You nod at it. It nods back. Maybe. Then you reach the coast. Waves crashing. Sea foam hissing like old bronze. And there, perched on a rock like it owns the entire Aegean, is a seagull. You sigh. All right, Poseidon, if this is you, blink twice. It does not, which is fair. He never liked being subtle, but the sea is his signature, and you know, the smell of salt that carries secrets. You sit by the shore and start plucking at your lyre again. This one's for Coronis. A love story if you squint and ignore the ending. You loved her once. She loved someone else. You found out the way gods always do, late and dramatic. You sent a crow, black as midnight, to spy for you. When it returned with the truth, you were so enraged, you cursed the bird. Turned it white to black as punishment. Classic divine overreaction. Later, Coronis died. Mortal hearts are fragile that way, but her son, your son, Asclepius, the god of healing, a spark of mercy born from revenge. Even your messiest myths end with hope sometimes. You strum slower now, and the sea listens, or pretends to. The wind picks up full of salt and stray hair, as if trying to tousle you back into humility. You wrap your cloak a little tighter and keep strumming the rhythm steady as waves, the melody somewhere between lullaby and lament. You're thinking of Hyacinthus now. Sweet Hyacinthus. Mortal youth smile like sunshine and way too good at discuss. You remember the first time you saw him mid-throw legs like a statue in motion, hair catching the light just wrong enough to make your divine chest ache. He laughed when you introduced yourself. Apollo the lyre guy. You chuckled, among other things. You taught him music and poetry, and maybe a few scandalously inefficient yoga poses. In return, he taught you how to lose your balance and still call it flying. The accident. If it was an accident, came later. A discus thrown during a friendly match. A sudden gust of wind, a skull, a silence. And Zephyrus the wind god skulking nearby with guilt trailing him like smoke. Historians still argue whether it was a jealous act or an honest breeze, whether gods can miscalculate or if fate just likes to aim for irony. You don't remember the moment he fell. You remember what came after, blood soaking into wildflowers. Your voice cracking when you tried to sing him back. The ground trembling as you cried his name. And then spring. The first hyacinths curling up from the soil like shy echoes. You named them for him. You scattered seeds with trembling hands. Immortality in petal form. You stop playing for a moment, let the sea have its say. It crashes, spits, withdraws. Same as it's always done. You whisper to the foam. I still miss him, you know. The waves don't answer, but a crab scuttles sideways and gives you a deeply judgmental look. Probably Dionysus in disguise. You keep walking. By midday, you reach a quiet glade, sun-dappled and drowsy, where bees hum like tiny drunk bards. You lie down in the grass, fingers laced behind your head, and stare at the sky like it owes you an explanation. Your thoughts drift to Daphne. Ah, yes, the girl who chose bark over romance. You had meant well again. Your arrow-struck heart thudded like a war drum every time she passed. You pursued, you serenaded, you tried metaphors. She ran, and when cornered, she prayed not to be saved from danger, but to be saved into something else. The gods granted her wish. Roots, leaves, silence. A laurel tree tall and trembling. You crowned yourself with her. Every victory, every poem, every song offered to the one who never wanted them. And here's the thing, you don't say out loud even to yourself. She might have been right. Some loves aren't meant to be caught. You sit up and strum again softly now. The tune doesn't chase, it waits, like shade in the heat. And the trees around you, well, maybe they listen, maybe they remember. You pluck a laurel leaf from a nearby branch. Tuck it behind your ear, whisper, "Thank you." Then, because it feels right, you hum her name into the strings. Daphne, Daphne, Daphne. Each note fluttering like wings through the warm stillness. You close your eyes and let yourself rest just for a minute in. A rare thing even for a god. Not sleep, not quite, but that soft state of not doing. Of just being. Just remembering. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rumbles, not angry, just bored. Zeus probably knocking over his golden chalice again. You sigh. Even the immortals need babysitting, but not yet. For now, you stretch out, let the grass cradle your tired limbs, and play a little lullaby for no one in particular. Just the world. By the time you stir again, the bees have dozed off mid-flight, hovering like plush punctuation in the warm afternoon air. The laurel leaf has slid from behind your ear and landed on your chest as if guarding your heart from your own memories. You sit up slowly. The grass leaves impressions on your skin like soft, natural tattoos. Another gentle reminder from the world that it was here first. And now your thoughts drift to Orpheus. Ah, that poor melodramatic darling. If anyone could rival you in music, it was him. You remember the first time you heard his voice clear and trembling like morning frost that sings just before it melts. You hated him for it briefly. Then you adored him. He adored Eurydice. That was the problem. Or maybe the inspiration. Gods often get those confused. You gave Orpheus your blessing. Your lyre's tuning secrets, even a few verses you'd been saving for yourself. And when Eurydice died bitten by a serpent during what was probably the least romantic stroll in history, Orpheus did the unthinkable. He went down into the underworld. You weren't there, of course. Hades keeps his calendar pretty full. But you heard the tale soon after Orpheus played so sweetly, so sorrowfully, that even Persephone cried. Even Cerberus stopped gnawing on his own leg to listen. And Hades made a deal. One condition, one rule. Don't look back. You know how that ended. Historians still argue whether Eurydice vanished because he doubted or because he loved too much. Whether love should ever have a rule attached to it in the first place. You've written ballads about it naturally. The moment when he turns, the flicker of hope, the collapse of it. But what they never mention, he kept playing, even after, especially after. His music became softer, sadder, unbearably beautiful. Mortals would weep and not know why. Trees leaned toward him. Rivers paused. You think of that often. What to do with love you can't undo. Sometimes you play his melodies when you're alone, just to feel his fingertips echo through the strings. Now, sitting at the edge of a dry riverbed, you hum one of those tunes. It spills out of you like spilled ink, inevitable and staining. And then, just as your voice fades, a gust of wind lifts your hair. There's someone behind you. You turn, but it's not Orpheus. It's a child. A mortal girl no more than 10 barefoot and carrying a small wooden bowl full of wild grapes. She stares at you with the blank curiosity of someone not yet told what's divine and what's just weird. You're shiny, she says. You blink. Am I? She nods. Also, your harp looks like it tells secrets. It does, you reply deadpan. She hands you a grape. Tell me one. You do. You tell her about Selene and her silver chariot, about the moonlight in love with a shepherd, about how the stars sometimes rearrange themselves just to feel noticed. She listens. Then she eats a grape and shrugs. That's nice, but I like the sun better. You grin, so do I. She runs off bobbing in her arms, dust rising around her like smoke. And just like that, you're alone again, but lighter. Because sometimes a tiny human with sticky fingers can remind even a god that stories aren't always about the endings. Sometimes they're about the act of telling, of sharing, of sitting by a river that forgot to carry water and filling it instead with music. So you pluck another note. For Orpheus, for Eurydice, for the child who thought you looked shiny, and maybe just maybe for yourself. Because even you forget sometimes what your voice can do. You're drifting now, half in the world, half in a song following your own footsteps across the cracked path of myth. And somewhere behind you, Orpheus's last note still echoes, twining with the wind, like a ribbon too proud to lie flat. Up ahead, nestled between the hills like a lost piece of sculpture, lies Delos, home turf, the birthplace of you and Artemis. Although birthplace feels like a stretch when your mother gave birth, while literally clutching a date palm surrounded by angry Hera's jealous curses and zero modern amenities, no epidurals, just divine rage and some emergency swaddling. You remember Delos as dust and light and endless promise. The kind of place where gods are born barefoot and still learn to run faster than reason. You walk now where you once crawled, if gods ever crawl, which historians still argue about. Some insist you emerged fully radiant hair, already perfect, speaking fluent hexameter. Others suggest you probably cried like every other newborn. You'd rather not confirm either version. The ground here still holds your heat. The olive trees whisper in your voice. And the birds, they've never stopped gossiping about you. But you're here for one reason: to visit a temple that no longer exists. Just a ring of stones now half sunken, licked by waves and nostalgia. You sit at the center, and you think of Phaethon. Poor kid, bright-eyed, brighter dreams. And that fatal combination, divine parentage and zero qualifications. When he came to you and asked to drive the sun chariot just once, just one ride, Dad, you hesitated. You almost said no. But you said yes, because how do you explain to a child that power isn't a toy? That steering the sun isn't about fun or flair, it's about balance and fear and knowing exactly how not to melt half the planet. He climbed in. You watched, and then you watched it all go wrong. The chariot dipped too low. Flames scorched the earth. The Sahara cracked open like a broken dish, and in the end, Zeus had to intervene. A thunderbolt. A crash. Silence. Phaethon fell not just from the sky, but from your story. A sun, a mistake, a cautionary footnote. You strum a low, shivering chord that barely rises above the surf. Historians still argue whether letting him try was an act of trust or cosmic negligence, whether you truly believed he could do it or just wanted a break. You've never answered, not aloud. But here in this place of beginnings, you hum his name into the wind, just once. The sky doesn't respond, but a single ray of sunlight breaks through the clouds, lands gently on your shoulder, and lingers there. You call that a win. As you stand, you trace the symbol of the sun on the dusty ground with your heel, and then you leave it behind. You walk east, because that's where the sun goes, even when it gets lost, especially when it gets lost. On the ridge above the shoreline, a shepherd waves. You wave back. His sheep look unimpressed. Don't follow gods, one of them seems to mutter. We tried that once, ended up on a spit. The shepherd offers you cheese. You accept. A moment of mortal kindness that tastes like olives and awkward sincerity. You both watch the sea. He tells you about a fish that allegedly sings. You pretend not to know it's just a dolphin with performance anxiety. Then you continue on. One more story tugs at your sleeve. You stop by a small spring, quiet and shy, hidden between rocks like it's embarrassed to still be running. And there you think of Niobe, the woman who bragged. The woman who dared to say her children were more numerous, more beautiful than Leto's, that is your mother's. A mistake, naturally. Artemis heard it first. Swift arrows, swift justice. You came in later, finishing what she started. Niobe lost her children, all of them. And she cried until she turned to stone. You play a note for her, too. Not forgiveness, not regret. Just acknowledgement. Because grief is older than gods. And even pride comes from love sometimes. The spring bubbles up, catching your melody and carrying it downhill. You smile and keep moving. The sun slants lower now, brushing golden highlights over every stone, every ripple, every ancient grudge you've managed to remember. You pass a fig tree that seems to recognize you. Its branches twitch politely, though it offers no fruit. Maybe next season. The road turns westward just as your thoughts begin to settle into their final orbit. Tonight, you're thinking of Cassandra. Sharp tongue, sharper eyes. The kind of mortal who could make a god pause, not because she was beautiful, though she was, but because she was right. Always. You offered her the gift of prophecy. She accepted. And then, when she didn't return your affections, when she made it clear that not even divine compliments could distract her from her very mortal boundaries, you tweaked the terms of her gift. Now she'd see everything, but no one would ever believe her. Historians still argue whether this was petty revenge or cosmic irony, whether you cursed her or simply gave her humanity's greatest burden, being right too early. You regret that one, quietly, privately. You sometimes wonder if she still speaks from somewhere, if her voice lingers in the warnings we ignore, if she watches every news scroll, every climate report, every digital sigh and mutters, "I told you so." You find yourself at a small village now, unmapped, untitled. Smoke curls from a hearth. A dog yawns wide enough to swallow the moon. Someone offers you wine. You nod. It tastes like dust and grape skins and second chances. They don't know who you are, or maybe they do, but they don't care. That's almost better. You pull out your lyre and play, not for power, not for worship, not even for memory, just to play. The villagers listen. Children giggle. One goat collapses in what might be divine ecstasy or just regular exhaustion. You play until the stars come out, dragging their silver gowns behind them. And you think, maybe for the first time in a long while, that this is enough. Not the temples, not the myths, not the high drama. Just the music, just the stories, just the quiet hum of people living, breathing, forgetting, and remembering you in equal measure. You lie back in the grass and stare up. Somewhere far above, the sun waits for you to retrieve it again. It'll wait. It always does. And now? So here you are, lying beneath a sky that doesn't need explaining. The stars have taken their places. The constellations begin their slow nightly procession, not because they must, but because it's beautiful. Because it reminds us that even ancient chaos can follow gentle patterns. The grass under you is warm where the sun left it. The earth breathes soft and slow, and you match it without meaning to. Inhale. Exhale. The weight of myth lifts like a robe slipping from tired shoulders. You've told the stories of Hyacinthus and Daphne, of Orpheus and Niobe, of Cassandra and Phaethon. You've played their names like notes on a string, offered each a sliver of remembrance. Not as gods do for glory, but as humans do for comfort. And now your own story folds and joins theirs, like another woven thread in the old eternal tapestry. You don't need to chase the sun tonight. It knows its way. Let it drift across the sky without supervision. Let it warm the backs of sleeping lions, whisper across cold rivers and tuck behind mountains, not ready for morning. You've earned stillness. Let your thoughts soften. Let your limbs feel the hush of rest. Let the music, yes, that last lingering note, carry you somewhere quiet. No prophecy, no punishment, no flaming chariots. Just calm. Just cool shadows and crickets, and the rhythmic hush of stories coming to rest. The world hums its lullaby. And you sleep.